Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Rafe, and, Harry is being busy these days doing all manner of things related to getting a new job and moving his family to a new house and all those sorts of things. So he has taken a leave of absence for today, but will be back with us next time, I think, unless he has to do another. We should have a limit on number of off days you get, but I don't know. The contracts are kind of loose on that, so we don't push things. Anyway, I'm glad you were here. I'm going solo today, if you haven't figured that out. But we'll have some things to talk about, some spring things to discuss, because spring is imminent or here or on its way wherever you are. But before we get going, I want to thank the listeners. We are eternally grateful for the great listeners we have. We are a global top 10% podcast because of you. As usual, you can send us a note at bufnagle@bufnagle.com. Remember, share the love, share the buff. Take your information on the buff and put it on the bulletin board at the break room at work, or announce it to the world on your podcast, or send out. You know what you could do? You could say, listen to the buff. You could put that as your signature on your email, and that would be awesome, because then more people would listen to the buff. So we love the 5-star reviews. We'd love you to subscribe, hit the smiley star, the like button, whatever that is. Tell a friend to listen, and remember, you will get a free episode. And thank you again for listening. So here we are. It is there are all sorts of things going on, all kind of related to each other, and they're all kind of related to spring, to full moons, and how mankind relates to these celestial phenomenon that are taking place. We are in the midst of a bevy of fun and interesting things, and I just want to get started on this. So let's see where we're going. So the equinox, as of the dropping of this episode, the equinox was back on March 19th, 2024 at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. That would have been 10 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, and a number of other times, regardless of where you are around the world. The time relative to UTC was March 20th at 3:06 a.m. So if you were east of about Greenland, anywhere from Greenland around to the international date line, that's east of Greenland, your equinox came on March 20th. But if you are west of Greenland, the equinox came on the 19th. So here, me sitting here in the crossroads of America in Indianapolis, I am west of that line. So my equinox came at 11 p.m. on March 19th. Anybody in the U.S., and I believe almost everybody in North and South America, had their equinox on the 19th, but everybody else had it on the 20th. So that is the time when you can describe it in a bunch of different ways. The word translates to something like equal night, and night equal to what? And it turns out night equal to day. So essentially we have equal day and equal night at that point in time. And that's one way to think about it. If you are an ancient human watching the sunrise and set and trying to get things aligned with your calendar, like you might at Stonehenge or some other place like that, the sun will rise directly in the east, and it will be in the middle of its. If you look east where the sun rises, you will see it rising further to the north in the northern hemisphere summer, and further to the south in the in the northern hemisphere's winter. And on the spring and fall equinox, it will be straight east, and that's kind of a cool thing, I guess. And you could build like little buildings and line them up so the shadows I don't know, make the head of a serpent or so. You can do all sorts of things if you have time and the wherewithal to get the details right there. And the reason that happens is because the sun crosses the equator at that point. And the general model now is that the sun doesn't cross the equator. You need to think of the equator not as a line around the Earth, but as a plane that cuts the Earth into a northern and a southern hemisphere. And if you extend that flat plane out into space, when you are in northern hemisphere winter, which is the time from September through March, then I know that's not really that's really fall and winter, right? So, but when the sun is low in the sky in the northern hemisphere, it is summer in the southern hemisphere, and it is winter in the northern hemisphere. And at that point, the sun is below that plane of the equator. And as the planet goes around the sun, the sun moves from being below that plane, south of that plane, to being north of that plane. And the day at which the sun crosses that plane is, those are the days, there are 2 days. One of those days is the vernal equinox, and the other is the autumnal equinox. And you could call it northern spring equinox and the southern spring equinox, however you want to do it. I don't mean to, I know some people south of the equator, and I don't want to diss them, but we are going to stay mostly with, I'm going to try to do it from my perspective because it's hard for me to get myself upside down to do that for your perspective. So that's how the equinox works. Now, there's some subtleties with that definition because the sun doesn't cross the equinox at a point, because it takes a little bit of time for the sun to get above and below that plane. But they have a precise time, at least here to the nearest minute in the thing that I looked up. I think there's actually a time when the top part of the sun hits the plane and the bottom part and then a couple seconds later, the bottom of the sun goes across the plane. But I don't have time to worry about those exact times. I just know that on March 20th at 3:06 a.m. UTC, or at 11:06 p.m. Eastern time, the sun crossed the equator, and now it's on the north side, and we will get plunged into summer, and our southern hemisphere friends will start getting winterized. So that's how the sun crosses the equator. Essentially, we have equal day and night on the equinox, and that is a cool thing. Now, you note that the days in the northern hemisphere, the days are getting longer, and as they have been for quite some time, and the days are getting shorter in the southern hemisphere. And it turns out that the rate of change of the length of the day is highest at the equinox, and you can probably figure out why that is the case. There's some sine waves hooked up with that, and the rate of change of the slope is the rate of change of that sine curve has maximum slope right when it crosses the x-axis. So that's the same kind of thing. So we have springtime. The summary is we are in spring now in the north. They are fall in the south, and with springtime comes all sorts of festivals and celebrations of spring. And I learned just very recently of two of them. One I kind of knew about, the other I had no idea. And the one I kind of knew about was this thing called Holi, which is a Hindu festival of colors, love, and spring. And I'm sure you've seen this one. This is popular in India and Nepal and other places with lots of Hindu adherents. Sometimes it's called, they throw colored water and powder on each other, which to me all seemed like a really wacky thing. They'll take these, I don't know exactly what this stuff is because I've never felt it. You take some dyes and some pigments and you put them in a powder and you get different colors and you throw them at each other and it makes a big dusty mess and everybody seems to think it's a good time. I would worry that it would get into my eyes and I would breathe it in and inhale it and choke. But I'm kind of a curmudgeon when it comes to those sorts of things. But that's the thing they do. And they do that actually for a real holiday called Holi. Now it's not holy, I think, like we take like holy days or Holy Week, but it's holy. And I have a very good friend from Nepal who I'm sure will listen to this and say I'm pronouncing it wrong. Either that or he'll laugh or giggle gently and say, "Oh, it is okay." So we'll see what happens with that. But the Hindu festival celebrates the divine love between Radha and Krishna. And legend says that Krishna was despairing that Radha would not love him because Krishna was dark-skinned and Radha was more fair-skinned. So Yashoda, Krishna's mom, tells Yashoda to go tell Radha to color his face any color she wants. So she does that, and she turns him into the color that she wants him to be. And I don't know if that was darker or lighter, or if she said, "Oh, you're perfect the way you are." But anyway, that's where the coloring comes from, and that's kind of a thing to do, is to color yourself all up and enjoy the frivolity and the silliness of doing that. There's also a story of a triumph on that day, of a triumph of good over evil. And there was this king named, okay, and this is always fun for me with these Hindu names. Okay, here, I have to sound my way through it. There's a king named Hiranyakashipu, and he was a bad guy. He was evil, and he had some special powers, and he was granted this power that he could be killed by neither a human nor an animal, neither indoors nor outdoors, neither at day or at night, neither by projectile weapons nor by handheld weapons, and neither on land nor in the air neither on land nor in the air nor in the water. So he couldn't. So all those things he couldn't. So it seems like, wow, how are we going to get rid of this bad guy? So there's kind of a little long story here, but eventually Vishnu shows up, and Vishnu is disguised as Narasimha, who is half human and half lion. So Vishnu is Narasimha is neither man nor animal, check, and he shows up at dusk, neither night nor day, check, and he takes the bad king Hiranyakashipu to a doorstep, neither indoors nor outdoors, and he puts him on his lap, neither on land nor in the water nor in the air, and he kills him with his claws, neither handheld nor projectile weapons. So bingo! Good triumphs over evil through trickery of language, which is always one of my favorite ways to defeat evil. Kirk does that to the fembots in Star Trek, and here Vishnu does this to the bad king Hiranyakashipu, and that's kind of a fun thing. So you got that going on. Now these colors, I talked about the colors, that I was always worried that this dust or chalk or whatever would be a problem, and it turns out there are you can buy this stuff now. I guess anybody out to make a buck will sell you a vat of yellow or a vat of green or purple or something like that, and a lot of them are commercially produced, and they're all unlabeled, and nobody really knows what's in them. People aren't making them from traditional sources anymore, and some of them are getting them in their eyes and breathing them in. So there are some. So be careful. I think our time by the time this drops, Holi will be out of the way. It will be gone. But next year, make sure you plan ahead to get your colors from safe places. Just like we don't want you to look at the eclipse without glasses, we don't want you to participate in Holi without having safe pigments involved. So they also have, like any good celebration, they have parties and get-togethers and foods and treats and drinks and all those other kinds of things. So it's a good holiday because you get together with your friends and you do fun stuff. The holiday starts on Purnima, which is full moon day of the 12th month of India's calendar. So they have a lunar calendar as well. And it goes until the next day. It starts in the evening and it goes into the next day. And it typically falls in the middle of of March in the Gregorian calendar. In 2024, I think it fell on the 24th and 25th of March. So the moon is certainly full around that time. So if you look, the moon is full on the 24th, I think, or the 25th. And so that would put Purnima on or about that time. And it would also mean that 2 weeks later, we will have a new moon. And we know what that next new moon is going to do for us. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Now, the other thing I learned about, I had heard about this Holi thing, but I hadn't known about this other thing. And this other thing is Nowruz, which is a Persian spring holiday. And it is a 13-day festival leading up to the first day of spring. And Yeah, I don't know about you and your festivals. Man, I can dig those 13-day festivals. Anytime I get to celebrate the same party for 13 days, that's going to be a good one. It's one of these, spring is coming, the new year's here. Let's out with the old and in with the new kind of thing. There's a lot of house cleaning that takes place. Get rid of your old clothes and your old stuff you're not using anymore. Scrub the house from floor to ceiling. Open the windows, shake out the rugs. You may see the Persian rugs, Persia, right? Persian rugs getting taken outside and hung on the wire or the rope and get beaten, get the dust out of them. So I've always been a fan of the idea of starting the new year on the spring equinox. I figure when else would you do it? And the Persians apparently have been doing this New Year start on the spring equinox for 3,000 years. Okay, so this is old tradition, and apparently Persians, the present day Iranians are Persians, but I'm sure there are other Persians around. They celebrate this, and so I called my little Persian friend and I said, "What's the day with this Nowruz stuff?" And she was like, "You know about Nowruz?" And I was like, "No, I just read about it." So she told me that it is a thing, and they celebrate, and we had a good conversation about the kinds of things you do and how families have their own traditions, just like any good celebration. So they like most festivals, there's giving of gifts and there's gatherings, there's days off of school, there's food and there's treats, and they don't throw powdered chalk at each other, but it's they do their own kinds of things. There's a thing called the half sin table, and I thought half sin. I don't know. I'm either all in or all out, but no, it's not sins the way we think about sins as missing the mark, but sins rather in the Persian letter sin, and half means 7. So there are 7 things that start with the Persian letter sin, and they put these on a table and they represent things, and I don't know if you do things with these things that are on the half sin table. I'll have to talk to my friend Sammy and see what she says. Or if there's just like the Christmas trees, it's part of a thing. But we'll find that out, and we'll get that information to you. So the things, the 7 sins, the half sins, are apples, which is sib for beauty, garlic, which is sir for health, vinegar, which is sirke for patience, hyacinth, which is sonbol for spring, sweet pudding. Gotta love sweet pudding. Gotta love any holiday that has sweet pudding involved, which is semenu for fertility, sabze, which is sprouts for rebirth, and coins, seke, for wealth. So you're looking for beauty, health, patience, spring, fertility, rebirth, and wealth. What else could you want? And this sounds like my kind of holiday. This is a very popular thing in Iran and with other Persians and other places where, like I said, there are Persians involved. Apparently, among the other things I've read, and I would just leave you with this one, is in Afghanistan they make a date-based dessert called haft mua, which is served, and they have a game called bukashi. I'm going to just quote you what it says here. It says, it's a polo-like sport played with a goat carcass as a ball. So, we've talked about Royal Shrovetide football, but we have never played polo with a goat carcass. You know what? We'll have to, let's say this. If you have played buzkashi, with the goat carcass, I would love to know the rules, because we could imitate that next year at the Bufnagle annual festival of, how do I say this again? Of Nowruz. Nowruz is the springtime festival in Persia. So that leads us to some other springtime ones. Passover is a Jewish festival that's outlined in Exodus after God helps Moses free the Israelites from Egypt. Yeah, in the 10th plague, the angel of death comes to Egypt to strike down all the firstborn, but the angel of death will skip houses. He will pass them over if they are marked with the blood of a lamb above the door. So they are supposed to put the blood on the doorpost and the lintel, which is the area above, and the angel of death will say, "Oh, nothing here," and on the angel will go. So Passover begins on the 15th day of the month of Nisan. think I'm saying that right. If not, it's Nisan, Nisan. At which present that falls between March 26th and April 25th of the Gregorian calendar. So sometime between March 26th and April 25th, we will have the 15th day of the month of Nisan. The 15th day obviously begins in the evening after the 14th day, and the Seder meal is eaten that evening. And Passover is a spring festival. It's done in the spring when the spring moon is coming through. 15th day of Nisan typically falls on the night of a full moon after the northern vernal equinox. So that full moon after the equinox shows up in another thing we're going to discuss, but that's how Passover, that's when it falls. The Hebrew calendar has intercalendary months, intercalendary leap months. They have leap months every now and then. They'll have a whole month stuck in there so that the months line up with the solar year. And so it moves around. Things move around there. The 15th day of Nisan is somewhere between late March and late April. Passover 2024 is coming up in April. So if you want to get ready to celebrate that too, you can. It lasts for 7 days until April 30th. Now, March 24th, when this drops, we will say was Palm Sunday, oftentimes called Passion Sunday in the church, and that is a celebration of Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem early in the week, and then 5 days later, he's strung up on a cross. And it is a lesson in, the lessons there are a myriad of lessons, let's say it that way. But the big one, at least that I see outside of the whole redemption story, is one of the fickleness of the whims of a crowd and the cowardice of Pilate that leads to Truth Incarnate being killed and a murderer being released in his stead. It is a remarkable thing that a mob can be enticed to do. Now, I read just today a post from Anthony Esselin, who writes some things now and then out on the interwebs, and the word mob actually comes from the word mobile, which means that the mob, not that it can move, but the mob's opinions can be moved easily. They are mobile. They are easily to be swayed. And the mob at the beginning of Holy Week welcomes Jesus as the man. And at the end of Holy Week, by Friday, he is, what's the quote? Pilate says, "Behold the man," right? Ecce homo. That's the quote. And there's a very famous painting called that of Pilate saying, "Look, is this your guy? Really? This you want me to do this?" So Pilate's a coward. The mob is fickle, and the story turns around, and that happens a week before Easter. So it starts what's called Holy Week in the church, and Holy Week we have Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday of Holy Week. Thursday is Maundy Thursday. Then you get Good Friday, and then Holy Saturday, and then Easter Sunday. Everything turns around. We have some episodes. Last year, I think we did episode on the Passion story itself and how it's the ultimate example of a story that is never ending and always there. That's that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's a tragic story revealing the fallen nature of man. That's what it does. And so that's on Palm Sunday, and a week later is Easter. On March 25th, so the day before this podcast is going to drop, is the Feast of the Annunciation, and that is the day that Gabriel appears to Mary and announces her upcoming pregnancy. It's interesting to me that this year these guys fall so close, with Easter being a little bit early this year. The Passion is on Sunday, and then on Monday we get the Annunciation, which is really the start of the story for next year. Well, for the infancy narrative for next year. So Gabriel appears to Mary, and he says, Luke puts it this way. He says, "In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a town of Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man named Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary." Now, I think we did an episode about the first 2 chapters of Luke and the relationship between this, how Zechariah deals with the angel's good news and how Mary deals with the angel's good news and how they're very similar, but they're also very different. And coming to her, Gabriel said, "Hail, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was greatly troubled at what was said and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. And then the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. Behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall name him Jesus. And he will be great and will be called Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give him the throne of David, his father, and he will rule over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." So that's an interesting, that's not your typical Tuesday if you are a young lady and you get this information from the angel. But Mary says, she says to the angel, "How can this be, since I have no relations with a man?" And the angel said to her in reply, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the child to be born will be called Holy, the Son of God. And behold, Elizabeth, your relative, has also conceived a son in her old age, and this is the 6th month for her who was called barren, for nothing will be impossible for God." And Mary says, "Fiat." She says, "Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. May it be done to me according to your word." And with that, the angel departed from her. And that's the story of the Annunciation. That's the celebration of the incarnation, the becoming. Well, incarnate means become meat, right? So God has become flesh on the 25th of March. And there's a couple things to note about this passage that shows up here that is relevant here on the 25th of March. That this passage is the basis for the Hail Mary prayer that is said as part of the Rosary. The other thing is that March 25th was originally set as New Year's Day back in the ancient church by one Dionysius Exiguus, the guy who invented the whole BC/AD thing. And he put the calendar, he said we ought to set the calendar on something that matters to us. So he put this, he put the crucifixion, let me rewind that. He puts the calendar such that the crucifixion and Christ's conception were both on March 25th. That was a belief back then, is that your date of conception and date of death were the same there. And if you recall from a previous episode we did a number of, months ago, March 25th and December 25th are part of 4 quarter days, they're called. They are 4 days, I guess you could call them 4 church days that partition the year into quarters. Those 4 days are, like I said, March 25th and Christmas, the 25th of December. And the other 2 are the Feast of John Baptist in the summer, June 25th or 24th. Sometimes that's called Midsummer Day. And the other one is Michaelmas, which is the Feast of St. Michael on September 29th. So you have the end of March, end of June, end of September, and end of December as 4 quarter days. And the conception / crucifixion of Jesus and the birth of Jesus are 2 of those fundamental days. And the other 2 are St. Michael and St. John the Baptist. So it lines them all up. And these days, March 25th was the new year. It was New Year's Day until the Gregorian calendar came around in 13. Are you quizzing me now? 1583, I think it was. So from the time of this Dionysius guy to the Gregorian calendar, like 1,000 years, March 25th was the first day of the year in the Christian calendar. And when the Gregorian calendar came around, for some reason, Pope Gregory XIII decided that he was going to go back to having January 1st, the first day of the year, for whatever reason. I'll have to go study that. And in England, though, they weren't Catholics there. They were big Protestants. And they said, we're not switching. We're going to keep it here. So they kept their New Year's Day as March 25th for a long time until they switched sometime. They switched in 1752. And so they must have switched their New Year's Day sometime on or around that time. So it turns out that Tolkien, in his Lord of the Rings, he puts the date of the destruction of the ring. Okay, spoiler. spoiler alert, with the Lord of the Rings, the ring gets destroyed at the end, and it gets destroyed on March 25th, which is the same day that Jesus destroyed death through the crucifixion. So that's an interesting thing that those two things line up. And the other thing is Samwise Genji has a daughter, and she is born 2 years to the day after the ring is destroyed on March 25th, TA 3021 in The Lord of the Rings. So March 25th is a big day, and it is a day that these days seems to get lost in the shuffle. It's going to be a typical Monday unless you are in the know. And unfortunately, you will become in the know on the 26th of March. So you have a whole year to plan for next year's March 25th. So those are the big ones that are coming up, with the exception of one more, which is Easter. Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox, and that is coming up this year on March 31st, a rather early Easter this year, but that's the way the moons fall. And if you're looking outside on or about the 25th or 26th, you'll see that the moon is moving from full toward new. We will get a new moon on April 8th, and that new moon will be such that it will be new right about the time that it is passing directly in front of the sun over my house, and it will produce a total solar eclipse on April 8th. So those of you who are out there who know who you are, you have your reservations. They have considered this to be confirmation that they are reserved. And the rest of you, feel free you can sleep on my lawn if you would like, but I can't have you in the building because there's finite room. Anyway, like I said, the full moon is coming up in 2 weeks, and is now, and in 2 weeks we'll have the new moon, and that will be the solar eclipse. So you know what? Spring is a time for festivals, and that is, I didn't realize we have all these. And I just mentioned two of them that I had just learned about. This is Holy thing and this Nowruz thing. Good stuff. Find the festivals that you like, adhere to them, make them part of your traditions. Traditions are what drive civilization, and if they are traditions that seek the good, then that's a wonderful thing. So we are going to encourage you, as we always do, to seek the good, to live virtuously, and to flourish and enjoy the adventure of life.
It's going to be a great day.